Do you know that the tsunami is the best thing that ever could have happened to Japan? You know, when I went to community college, I had an amazing philosophy teacher. And she taught me something called the dialectic. The dialectic. The didactic, not didactic, dialectic. Dialectic is something that been around since Plato. It's very old. Dialectic. It's basically that a dialectic has a thesis and ultimately antithesis. We create a new thesis that becomes a new antithesis, that becomes a new thesis. So by saying that the tsunami is the best thing, and I wholeheartedly believe this. The tsunami is the best thing that ever could have happened to Japan. All right? You're probably thinking I'm crazy. Because what you're thinking of is the pain, the suffering, the 20,000 lives lost. You're thinking of the destroyed communities and whether or not they're going to come back or not. It's a classic where you are looking at the problem. Right now, here is the tsunami, and all you see is the negative of the tsunami, right? You're looking at the simple problem of the tsunami. Yes, the simple problem of the tsunami, yes, it was a catastrophe beyond words. But see, I'm looking at it through a complex problem. And let me explain. In 1970s, in the late 1960s, 1970s, a group called the Roman Club knew an event was coming. They knew. But they weren't, they weren't scientists or anything else, but they knew. Whether they're, an ancient society and they have mystics, whatever, but they knew. The Roman Club. They're Roman Club. They've probably been around since the Romans, right? Who knows the history of the Roman Club? It's one of those kind of like elite groups. But they knew something was coming. Kind of like I knew something was coming. I didn't know this. Understand? I didn't know any of this research existed a week ago. And they went to MIT and they recruited a physicist, a researcher, to basically, use supercomputers, which our cell phones are this is more powerful than right now that I'm, supercomputer, to crunch the numbers and to see if there's any validity and if there is something that I call the Leviathan. The gilding Leviathan. The reason why I call it the gilding Leviathan is because is it Peter or David Gilding is the guy that put it on my event horizon, or my paradigm. I didn't know he existed. And then because he did that, I found the research behind it, which is from, I think it's Paul Gilding and David Matthews. And this all happened last week. And it was the missing piece, it's the missing piece that I needed to sell. It's the pain. It's the pain that the open startup, or what I now have last week, or have come up with, the last part is the innovation revolution. Ultimately, this, the innovation revolution is coming. The open startup engine is the steam engine for it. And their research is basically the part that I've been missing. And ultimately, what this validated, tested, and they've sold 40 million copies in over 20, 30 languages. You can do your own research. You can read the book. This event is going to happen, right? It's going to happen. And it's going to happen within 20 to 30 years. okay? Conservative, I think it's going to happen in 20. I know it's going to happen in 20. I don't think. I know it's going to happen in 20. I just know. How do I know? I just know. It's like, you know, I'm a wayfarer. I just know this thing, right? We're wayfarers. We know. Ultimately, why the tsunami is so good is because, based on this research, we know we have to create external societies, right? The idea of these cities and people living in big groups, you know, that's going to go, right? The idea of big cities and everything else is not going to work. And what's happened is you have 100 miles of coastal and community Japan that have been wiped away. We have a clean slate. We have a clean slate to redesign these communities to prepare for the Great Leviathan. Because the thing is, the innovation revolution isn't going to stop or kill. It's just going to wound. It's going to lessen the pain. And those countries that start preparing now for it are going to do a lot better than those that do not. And what's so fortuitous about the tsunami is it forces Japan to start now. And my goal, I just had a meeting, is now that I have the engine, okay, to bring about the innovation and to provide them the education that this is coming, so we don't rebuild the same fucking bullshit that we had before. The same bullshit we had before isn't going to work. We have to reinvent these communities with the understanding, okay, that the Leviathan is coming, and let's say let's pick a point, all right? Where's the standard that we're going to shoot for? And I would say here, let's look at conservative. The beautiful thing is, Japan already is a society that lives within means. We don't have big houses here. You know, we still use kerosene, for Christ's sake. Kerosene needs to be replaced, obviously, right? And we're so lucky the tsunami happened is because it becomes the vehicle for me, the platform for me, for bringing about the innovation revolution in Japan first. And Help Japan Co. fits into that. Beekeeping Japan fits into that. And the open startup can be pioneered. So we can run now, the open start will run the entire thing in Japan and other places where we have team members as a closed platform, and ultimately meet our goal and launch publicly in December for the rest of the world. And it's up to you, because ultimately I live in Japan. My family, my sons, my wife, they're Japanese. And what matters to me, which is very selfish of me, is preparing them and preparing my country for the Great Leviathan that is coming. And I'm so fortuitous to have had all these events just happen to line up, from the Shakespeare Festival that gave me the nagging feeling on how I was able to do this startup. It shouldn't have ever happened. To moving to Japan, to a coastal community where a tsunami happened to hit, and and then discovering this event, there's a great event horizon that's coming, which I'm calling the Leviathan. And fortuitous to be called Michael, with my sword, the open startup. And my lead developer and coder is also Michael, a frustrated developer who has written nearly 1 million lines of code. You know, my metaphysics is distributive unconsciousness, which bases on, it's a metaphysics, it's not a religion, it bases on quantum mechanics and the simple idea that there's a massive distribution of information, and that is proven through supersymmetry and quantum teleportation. And I won't go into it, but it's proven that there is this massive information distribution. And my thesis is this, is if it exists in one, it probably exists in everything. Why should just these supersymmetry particles happen to be? Why wouldn't it exist why wouldn't it be normal for everything? We just don't see it, right? They just don't respond to it. They're kind of like, think of it as supersymmetry. A good way to see it as they're magnets, right? Everything has electromagnetic field to it, but magnets respond. You put two magnets together, they respond instantaneously. Supersymmetry is that. So, I know distributive unconsciousness exists. People call it God, Tao, whatever you want to call it. And ultimately, I believe that the reason for my existence, everything that's happened to me in my life, has been led up to this. Now, the reason why I have that mind circle, that mark, as you know, the minds couldn't grow hair, is to show the world, or show whoever who wants to believe in what I have to say, because I believe it, and I know it's true. And the coincidence of the Mayan calendar ending, it's all too much just to be a fluke. There's a higher power going on here. And you need to listen. You need to trust in what I'm saying. And if you have the means to help, you need to stand up and help. My name is Michael Trout. And I will wound the Leviathan. I am sure for that. I'm sure about that now. What an amazing journey.